would be happy.
Anything else, caller?
I'd be happy.
Yeah, real quick. Daryl, are you familiar with the banking laws, banking rule of 7?
The banking rule of 7? No, I'm not.
Okay, basically what it says is the amount of time it takes money to double based on the interest rate. Now, I always wondered if this argument was ever brought up. You being an attorney may be familiar with this. The argument was, to my understanding, that by taking the property in the fort via eminent domain, more taxes would be realized in the long term. Is that correct?
Well, that was definitely their theory, but even if that theory proved accurate, I don't think it was right, because just because the taxes on my house are high does not give me the right to take your house because I'm upset about my taxes. I don't think that's right. You know, if I can't afford my taxes, I need a smaller house.
Call, I'm going to disconnect you. Thank you for calling.
All right.
And I'll see you in the near future. Eminent domain is over. The municipal development plan is a huge failed experiment that the state of Connecticut taxpayers funded and are still funding. What do we do with a property now, Daryl? Because we've been waiting for 10 years, and you touched on it briefly. And I don't understand, are you against Pfizer's? Are you against, I mean, I love Pfizer's, I love EB, and I love big companies, and I think we need a mix of both of them in the city of New London for a strong economic development, and we can't have enough, and they can't come fast enough.
Well, if you love Pfizer, you can follow them out of town because that's where they're going.
Listen,
you saw what the big company did to New London. They left them high and dry.
They made a business decision, and it worked out for the best because EB's coming in.
Because they got a sweetheart deal that said, oh, we'll give you 10 years of tax breaks, and if you leave, you don't owe us the back taxes. Oh, and if you can't find someone to take over your building, maybe you have to take your buildings down and remediate the land. Why wasn't that in there?
Why can't you be for economic development on every level? And I mean, are you against big companies? Are you against big business in general?
I think that small businesses provide better services and create more jobs for local people in New London. And I think that that should be the focus. When you're in a city of 6 square miles, not only do you want to keep the jobs locally and keep the revenue locally, but a small business economy is more diversified.
Let's get 2 more calls, and then I want you to be specific on how you're going to encourage small business. I'm all for it as well, and I don't think anybody is against it, but I'd like to see how you're going to introduce it and push it along. Thanks for calling. You live with Daryl.
Hey, Murray, how you doing? This is Dennis from New London. I got 2 quick questions for Daryl, then I'll hang up and let him answer them. One is, how does he feel about the Riverside Park issue? And 2, how he feels about the land value tax issue. Thanks, guys.
Those are good. Listen, I know you're going to hang up, but download or go to the day, and all this stuff is addressed. Daryl will tell you how he feels about it here, but he covers a lot of this stuff in more depth than he's going to be able to do tonight.
I'm opposed to the sale of Riverside Park. I believe it's a bad deal for the city. It's a short-term gain of realizing $2.9 million that once it's spent, it's gone, and the prime piece of real estate that the city now has is gone forever. I want to be a good neighbor to the Coast Guard Academy. They're a very cherished part of our community. However, that park, or at least a substantial portion of that park, represents our best chance for future redevelopment that can reconnect New London. The area under the bridges, the park, Hodges Square, William Street, if we redevelop that area, we can reconnect the north side of the city to the south. Those areas could get better utilized. In a long-term sense, every city planner that comes, and every plan I've looked at for the city of New London, involves that park. And if you give it away, it's gone, and we're going to lose that ability for long-term development potential. Also, it shows a very strong, I think, lack of concern for that neighborhood. I mean, that park is a centerpiece for that neighborhood, which we all know has a lot of public housing, is in an economic lower bracket, and for them for us to just sell their park out from under them, I think is a bad decision. But the good news is that per the terms of the purchase and sales agreement, the question for the sale of that park will be on the November ballot. So when you go to vote for your next mayor, you can also vote on whether or not you approve of the sale of Riverside Park.
You believe
I believe we should vote it down.
Do you believe that process is correct and It's in the hands of the voters, and if you're elected mayor, you know you're going to have to
I
abide by
went-
what the voters say.
Oh, absolutely, and I will always abide by what the voters say. I'll always also have to abide by pre-existing contracts. I didn't necessarily approve of the water deal that is now going to Niantic and East Line. I think that that was not a well-thought-through decision either, but it is done. The city council approved the contract. If you're elected mayor, it's your obligation to enforce city contracts.
We have 15 minutes left. The other
Sure.
question was on the LDTs.
LVT. I am a supporter of LVT, but I do believe it should start as a pilot program to test its viability.
No, you-
It has been tested in Pennsylvania
They
and in
went
Europe.
bankrupt. Pennsylvania went bankrupt.
But not because of LVT.
Daryl, I was quite surprised.
Mm-hmm.
He's not getting too much for you here in this hot seat, is it?
Heck no! I wish it would be a little hotter. Let's get it out there.
This thing was debated extensively. And basically, in a nutshell, and I'm against it 100% because I don't believe my taxes should go up and another guy's taxes should go down because he's fixing up his house and he wants me to pay for those improvements so he doesn't have to pay the taxes. The thing was debated extensively. The proponents of the LVT, is that it?
LVT, land value taxation is what's called.
They brought in these filibuster people from all over the country, and they were wonderful speakers, and they filibustered for quite some time, and the people that are for this in New London are very articulate and very intelligent, but the bottom line is, why penalize successful people so somebody else can fix up their property? I can't afford any more taxes, and basically, the bottom line is, one neighbor's going to have to pay for the other neighbor's improvements. It's no good, Daryl.
Well,
You're going to run into a lot of opposition with this, by the way.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I still believe that it is a good idea to test. And what I have suggested is that it be tied to one of our short-term redevelopment efforts. Now, if it's such a terrible idea, though, why did the pilot program get overwhelming approval from the Connecticut General Assembly? It did. It got approved by the Connecticut General Assembly. It got approved by the City Council.
The legislators who voted for this thing were hoodwinked because it happened behind closed doors. Nobody knew what was going on until after this thing was sent up to Hartford. They thought people were for it. And once this thing got to be a hot issue and got on the front page of the day paper and was discussed, those legislators changed their tune, as they will again. I don't think you're going to see this happen again. But let's get back to the phones because these people have good questions.
Yes,
Thanks for calling you live with Daryl.
Push it again.
They're trying to trick me on the phone again. Thanks for calling you live with Daryl.
Watch until it turns red, Murray.
Yeah. What
There
do I
we
need?
go.
What do I need? A hammer for this phone? I deserve better equipment here. Thanks for calling you live with Daryl.
Hi, Murray.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
Good.
2 questions for Daryl. Okay, number one, if he gets in office, is he going to kick New London Development Corporation's ass to the curb? Number one. And number 2, how does he feel about the Sky Bridge that will never die? And with that, I'll hang up and let him answer.
Thanks for the call.
You're talking
Good
about
questions.
the Sky Bridge in downtown?
Sky Bridge going from the Renasky Ferry
Yep.
terminal across that has been hotly debated.
Yes.
For
I
quite some time.
had a good conversation the other week with some people from New London Landmarks, and I'm still studying that issue. And I'm not afraid to say that I will continue to study it and get back to you on it. At this point, I don't have a position yet.
How about NLDC?
NLDC, in the past, I've disagreed with the decisions that NLDC has made. As we move forward, I think we need to reassess the role of NLDC, but I think that the structure is in place and it could be utilized in certain redevelopment efforts, but not the way it was used in Fort Trumbull.
Thank you for calling you live.
Hi, Murray.
Yes.
I just want to make a few comments. This gentleman that you have here as a guest has a lot of good ideas, but what it comes right down to is money. And you know New London is state and federal grants. Without them grants, New London would disappear.
That's right.
And another thing, too, with this recession that they say just got over, it could come back again and bite you right in the rear. Now, if the government and the state cut off these grants, where are you going to get the money? How are you going to raise your taxes? You're going to be right back in the same hole again.
Well, doesn't that really identify the real need for real economic development and real business, because there's only one thing that can help us financially in New London, and that is